If you're constantly feeling anxious, finding it hard to focus, and your mind always seems to be filled with negative thoughts that make your heart race, don't worry. Today we're going to share an inspiring story that can help you find relief from these feelings. Through the experience of a Buddhist monk, we'll show you a way to deal with these incessant thoughts and find inner peace. So stay with us until the end of this story, because it could be the key to transforming your worries into serenity. Let's begin. A long time ago, in a remote region of China, there was a large monastery that was home to around 500 monks. They were all in search of self-knowledge and practiced mindfulness, guided by a wise and experienced master. One day, a young man showed up at the monastery, determined to become a disciple. He approached the master and said, "Master, I am in search of myself. I want to discover the truth and understand what it really means to live." The master, with a deep gaze, observed the young man for a moment and then replied, "If you really want to know the truth, you need to be willing to dedicate your whole life to this search. It may take years, perhaps decades, and even then there's no guarantee that you'll find what you're looking for in this lifetime. Are you prepared to sacrifice everything for that?" Without hesitation, the young disciple said, "Master, I didn't come all this way to give up or turn back. I'm ready to follow this path no matter how difficult it is." The master, seeing the determination in the young man's eyes, said, "Very well, if you're determined, I have a task for you. This monastery is home to 500 monks. Your responsibility will be to mill rice for all of them. That's all you'll do. From dawn until dusk, grind rice. When you're exhausted, rest and sleep. The next day, wake up and repeat the process. Don't do anything else and don't worry about other issues. Just follow this path and don't look for me. When necessary, I'll come to you." The young man accepted without question and began milling rice every day. The monastery had a high demand for rice to feed the 500 monks, so the work was hard and constant. He woke up very early before everyone else and spent the whole day grinding rice until late at night. When fatigue overcame him, he would sleep in the same room where he worked, and as soon as dawn broke, he would resume his routine. He didn't talk to anyone, and the other monks left him alone too. For the first few months, the young man was still haunted by old thoughts and memories of the past. But over time, as there were no new stimuli, these thoughts slowly began to disappear. The young man began to experience a quietness of mind where his thoughts gradually diminished to the point where he could no longer remember his own name. The young monk continued his task without meditating, without studying the scriptures, just focused on the activity of grinding rice. To the other monks, he seemed like a fool, someone who didn't understand the depth of Buddhist teachings because he didn't discuss spiritual concepts, didn't participate in the group's reflections, and never showed any interest in advancing his learning. However, he remained unwavering in his task day after day. 12 years passed in this uninterrupted routine. One day, the master announced that his time was near and that he needed to choose a successor to lead the monastery when he left. He said, "Any disciple who feels that they have attained self-knowledge and fully understand themselves should come to my door at night and write a few lines on the wall, summarizing their entire life experience." Many of the disciples were tempted to take part, but only one of the oldest, known for his vast knowledge of Buddhist scriptures, went there and wrote down his reflections. He wrote, "The mind is like a mirror that collects dust through thoughts and desires. Meditation is the process of cleaning this dust, and when the mirror is clean, the mind becomes clear, leading to liberation." The next morning, when the master read the words on the wall, his expression hardened and he said, "Who was the fool who wrote that?" The disciple who had written it remained silent, even though he was sure that his words were true and full of knowledge. He hadn't signed his name for fear of being wrong. The master completely rejected those lines, leaving all the monks surprised, since the author was considered one of the wisest in the monastery. This incident became the main topic among the disciples. While two of them were talking about what had happened, they passed the young man who had been milling rice for 12 years. On hearing the discussion, the young monk, who rarely showed any reaction, laughed lightly. Intrigued, the two monks asked why he was laughing. To them, he was just a simple monk, someone who never got involved in philosophical or spiritual debates. There were many scholars in the monastery, and the monk who milled rice had always been seen as an insignificant figure. Surprised by his reaction, They asked again, "Why are you laughing?" He replied calmly, "I laugh because the master is right. Those words have no value, they're just empty theories." The astonished disciples asked, "Do you think you can write something better?" The monk replied, "No, I can't read or write, but I can say a few words. If you are willing to write them for me, I can accompany you." The two disciples, now curious, accepted the proposal and took him to the master. The monk recited a few sentences, and one of the disciples wrote them on the wall, signing in the name of the monk who milled rice. They expected the master to get angry again, but on the contrary, the words spoken by the monk were profound and true. The mind is just an illusion. There is no mind, no mirror of the mind. And if there is no mind, where can dust collect? He who understands this understands the truth. Reading these words, the master was impressed. In the middle of the night, he got up, went over to the sleeping monk and woke him up. With a serene look on his face, he said, "Take my staff and my robe. As of today, you are my successor. But you must leave this monastery immediately and go far away. Many here consider themselves superior to you and couldn't bear to see you as their leader. They could try to end your life." A simple rice grinder, however humble he may seem, can attain a wisdom that many people never reach. As much as most people underestimate something so simple, the truth is that in its simplicity there is incredible depth. You have now reached the same level of understanding as me, and so I know that wherever your steps take you, people will be drawn to your presence, just as bees are drawn to the sweet nectar of a flower. When a flower blooms, it doesn't need to make an effort to spread its scent, it simply spreads. In the same way, genuine wisdom, when attained, radiates effortlessly, touching everyone around. After realizing this truth, he touched his master's feet in a gesture of deep respect, and that very night decided to leave the monastery in search of his journey. If we reflect on our own existence, we will see that many people believe that meditation is a practice that can only be carried out in the traditional way, sitting down, with your eyes closed, in complete silence. However, this is a limited idea. In reality, meditation is much more than just adopting a specific physical posture. True meditation can be practiced in almost any situation. It can be done while taking a leisurely walk, while carrying out routine tasks, or even while at work. The essence of meditation lies in being completely present and focused on what we are doing at that very moment. Let's think, for example, of the rice grinder. He was so deeply involved in the task of grinding the rice that he lost track of everything around him. He no longer remembered time, space, or even himself. He was in a state of full immersion, of complete dedication to the present. And it was precisely in this state of absolute concentration that he achieved self-realization. He understood that the key to self-knowledge lies in living fully in the present moment, not worrying about the past that is already gone, nor letting himself yearn for the future that has not yet arrived. In doing so, he learned that the secret to inner peace is not to let yourself be dominated by incessant thoughts. The human mind only exists as long as we feed it our thoughts. When thoughts cease, the mind disappears, at which point we finally begin to understand who we really are. Therefore, to discover your true essence, you don't need to follow strict or complex practices. You don't need to isolate yourself in a monastery or adopt fancy techniques. The path to self-knowledge lies in something much simpler, giving yourself completely to whatever you're doing so that your own activity becomes a form of meditation. Any task, when carried out with complete attention, can become a gateway to self-knowledge. But of course, many of us face a very common problem: overthinking. Thinking too much can be a real trap, leading us into a spiral of worry and confusion. To help illustrate this, I want to share an intriguing story. In a small village, there was a man who was well known for his impressive ability to unlock locks. Whenever someone needed to open something that seemed impossible, he was the first person to come to mind. One day, some wise men from the village decided to test his skills to see how far he could go. They informed him that, on a specific date, he would be challenged to open something unique. When the day arrived, they explained to him that he would be placed inside a box, which in turn would be submerged in water. His challenge was simple. He had to unlock the box in order to escape. If at any point he felt he couldn't accomplish the task, he could press an emergency button to be brought back to the surface, but that would mean losing the challenge. Confident in his abilities, he accepted without hesitation and was submerged. As soon as the box was underwater, he quickly took a wire from his pocket and started trying to unlock the lock. However, after several attempts, he was still unsuccessful. With each failure, time passed, and he found it harder to keep his breath. The tension grew. He tried a few more times, but the lock simply wouldn't budge. The pressure increased, and he realized he was running out of air. He used all his mental and physical energy for one last effort, but he couldn't make it. Exhausted and out of options, he finally pressed the emergency button. When he was brought back to the surface, the box was also taken out of the water. To everyone's surprise, a small push was all it took for the lid to open. The man was stunned and asked himself, "Why didn't I just try pushing? Maybe the box wasn't even locked from the start." This story shows us an important lesson about the danger of thinking too much. We often complicate situations that could have simple solutions. When we get caught up in our thoughts, we end up losing sight of the obvious solutions. That's why they say, those who do nothing sometimes accomplish wonders. And that's very true. When we manage to keep our minds calm, without overloading ourselves with unnecessary thoughts, we find the best solutions. Now let's explore the main causes that lead us to overthink, something that affects many people. The first cause is the habit of worrying excessively about the past or the future. When we divert our focus from the present moment to dwell on what has already happened or worry about what might happen, we become vulnerable to overthinking. The second cause is stress at work. When we are overwhelmed with too many responsibilities, our minds tend to become agitated, and this generates stress. This chaotic mental state allows irrelevant thoughts to start popping up, contributing to overthinking. The third cause is constant fear. Whether it's the fear of losing your job, not being promoted, failing at an important task, or suffering a financial loss, this fear creates imaginary and exaggerated scenarios that feed the cycle of overthinking. The fourth cause is a lack of confidence. When a person doesn't fully trust their ability to accomplish a task, their self-confidence diminishes. This makes room for negative thoughts to take over, leading to worries and overthinking. The fifth cause is focusing on the negative aspects of life. When a person starts paying more attention to problems than to solutions, they end up falling into the trap of overthinking, turning small challenges into big obstacles. But the big question is, how can we overcome the habit of overthinking? The good news is that it is possible to overcome this tendency, although it may take some time. Here are some practical steps to help you deal with it. First, recognize that you have this habit. Self-awareness is the first step towards change. By admitting that you tend to overthink, you'll be ready to start overcoming it. Whenever you notice yourself getting lost in thought, stop immediately and try to identify the moment when these thoughts started. This will help you understand how much time and energy you are wasting on unnecessary thoughts. Secondly, focus on positive thoughts. Instead of thinking about everything that can go wrong, focus on what can go right. Negative thoughts generate fear and anxiety, while positive thinking strengthens your mind and helps you take control of your emotions. Thirdly, include activities such as yoga, meditation, and physical exercise in your daily routine. These practices are fundamental to keeping your mind and body healthy. Meditation, in particular, is extremely beneficial for training your mind to stay present. Fourthly, live in the present moment. Many people spend their lives stuck in the past or anxious about the future, which creates stress. It's important to learn from the past and plan for the future, but without losing focus on the present. Finally, write down your worries. Putting down on paper what is troubling your mind can be an effective way of releasing these thoughts. How you think and feel directly affects what you experience. A great exercise is to write down what is bothering you. Write down the problems that are bothering you, the reasons why these problems affect you so much, and whether worrying too much really solves anything. If, after reflection, you realize that worrying won't bring a solution, then the best thing to do is to find a practical solution to the problem, or simply accept that you need to let it go. With time and practice, this technique will help you to reduce those unnecessary thoughts that only drain your mental energy. Number 6. Learn to control your emotions. This doesn't mean that you should hide or repress what you feel. It's not healthy to suppress your emotions, but to learn how to manage them properly. When your emotions are under control, you see things more clearly, make more conscious decisions, and face situations more calmly. However, when your emotions are out of control, they tend to fuel negative thoughts that take you nowhere and end up increasing your worry load even more. Number 7. Occupy your mind with creative activities. One of the best ways to avoid unproductive thoughts is to channel this mental energy into things that give you pleasure and help you relax. Instead of wasting time ruminating on problems, get involved in activities that do you good, such as reading a good book, listening to music you like, singing, practicing an instrument, or even spending quality time with friends and family. As well as keeping bad thoughts at bay, these activities help to stimulate the brain and give you a sense of well-being. Number 8. Accept and value who you are. Often, overthinking causes us to be too hard on ourselves, judging ourselves in an exaggerated and negative way. Always remember that nobody is perfect, and that includes you. There's nothing wrong with accepting your flaws and imperfections, as they are part of the growth process. The important thing is to keep learning, evolving, and, above all, maintaining a positive view of yourself. When you accept and love the person you are, negative thoughts lose strength and stop dominating your mind. Number 9. Keep your mind at peace. In the rush of everyday life, stress has become such a constant companion that many people no longer even realize the impact it is having on their mental and physical health. Most of us live with such a hectic mind that we barely have time to reflect on what's really bothering us. If you want to stop thinking too much, you need to learn how to calm your mind. There are several ways to do this, such as meditation, breathing exercises, or even moments of reflection and tranquility in your daily life. The calmer your mind, the less room there will be for overthinking. Now, I'm going to share with you 3 stories that can really change your perspective and make you rethink the way you approach life and daily challenges. First story: the blue stones and the value we don't see. A very poor man, desperate about his financial situation, decided to go to a wise man for help. The wise man, listening to him, gave him a very bright blue stone and said, "This stone is a precious jewel. Take it to the market and see how much people are willing to pay for it." The man, intrigued, went to show the stone to various merchants. He went to a fruit seller, who offered him a small sum, then to a utensil merchant, who offered a little more. Then he took the stone to a jeweler, who offered an even larger sum. But finally, he came to a diamond merchant, who looked at the stone and said, "This stone is priceless. Even if I sold everything I have, I wouldn't be able to buy it." The lesson we can draw from this story is simple. Our value doesn't depend on what others say or think about us. The value we have is determined by ourselves, by the way we see ourselves. Never allow the negative opinions of others to diminish your value or make you believe that you are not important. Second story: the frog at the bottom of the well and the power of belief. A group of frogs were happily hopping through a forest until 2 of them fell into a deep well. The other frogs around the hole started shouting that the 2 friends would never get out. They told them to give up because it was impossible to escape from such a deep fall. One of the frogs, on hearing this, became discouraged and stopped trying, accepting his fate. The other frog, however, kept jumping tirelessly until he finally managed to get out of the well. When it came out, the other frogs were surprised. It was only then that they realized that the frog was deaf and had interpreted the cries as words of encouragement. The moral of this story is clear. Believe in yourself, keep fighting, no matter what others say. People around us can often discourage us, but the strength you need comes from within. Third story: the eagle that thought it was a chicken and true potential. One day, an eagle egg accidentally fell into a chicken coop and ended up hatching along with the chicks. The eagle grew up among the chickens, believing it was one of them. It spent its days scratching the ground just like the chickens and never even tried to fly. One day, the young eagle saw an adult eagle flying high in the sky and was fascinated. She asked the hen who raised her, "Why can't I fly like that?" And the hen replied, "You're a hen. You can't fly like an eagle." The eagle believed this and lived the rest of its life as a chicken. without ever exploring its true potential. The lesson here is profound. Don't let the limitations imposed by others define who you are or what you can achieve. Believe in your abilities and explore your full potential, because you are capable of much more than you realize. Conclusion. Friends, I hope these stories can open your mind and help you rethink some ideas, especially when it comes to controlling overthinking and overcoming the limitations we place on ourselves. If you learned something valuable from this content, please share it with your friends, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope these lessons help you find more peace and clarity in your life.